it's been a problem that has been with us for a long time, and that explains why President Obasanjo then decided to unbundle the sector to make it more business-like, so that people who are running their business will run it more efficiently, and then we'll have constant power supply. The sector was unbundled by National Assembly Act of 2004 that allowed the president or the government then to unbundle the sector, where you no longer have a NEPA, what people used to call NEPA, where it was owned by government and people never really felt that where they should be paying for this service. Now you have 11 distribution companies in the hands of private sector, and then you have the generation companies also in the hands of private people. The expectation was that there will be more efficiency in the sector. But at the time that this the Obasanjo government was unbundling the sector, there were initial problems that they didn't foresee. And so the privatization was done not in a manner that was very sustainable. And so those are the problems that you see them coming now. For instance, you are now privatizing the distribution sector, or the distribution arm of the power sector. You sold those distribution companies to different companies, different entities. There were obligations that government was supposed to meet. There were also obligations that those people who took over these entities were supposed to meet. None of that has been done. I'll give you an example. If you have Abuja Distribution Company, for instance, the expectation within the agreement, the power purchase agreement, within that agreement, it was expected that it's okay, at this time, between now and maybe 2 years, there will be some milestones in terms of metering of people, in terms of making sure that some of the transformers or some of the transmission lines that were broken within those transmission, that you would have fixed them. These people borrowed money. They didn't have money to do all of that. People who are expected to pay in terms of tariff, most of them still believe that it is during NEPA time. And so those obligations, especially government agencies, are owing huge amount of money. So the people who hold these entities couldn't access funds to be able to correct some of the some of the infrastructural deficit that were already there before they took over the entities. If we go to generation, for instance, generation was supposed to generate electricity, transmit it through the transmission company. Then there was an entity that was created called MBET, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, that was supposed to buy all of what has been generated, and then they will now sell it to the distribution company, collect the money, give it back, pay back to the generation company. The distribution company have been unable to pay. The debt is mind-boggling. And so how do you expect the generation company to continue to be business if you are spending money generating electricity and you are not being paid for what you are doing? You come to the distribution company, the infrastructure deficit was very, very high. So it needs trillions of naira for them to be able to fix that deficit. They didn't have that money. And since they were unable to generate enough money, the banks couldn't even lend them money any longer. So the sector lacked the necessary funding. And that is why you hear about increase in tariff when people like us were objecting to it, because Nigerians were not getting the service that they deserve, and then they were adding more burden. But that has to happen. Otherwise, you experience what you just experienced now, where the entire country was almost in darkness because of collapse of the infrastructure that has decayed. So it is a problem that, frankly speaking, the government is trying. They have done quite a lot. They've spent quite a lot of money. But because the problem is so huge, whatever money that has been expended is like a drop in the ocean. Otherwise, they've made some efforts. Now you talked about mass metering, which is going on, which the government has intervened. They've provided for now about 59 billion. About 1.3 trillion was expended on paying the difference in terms of the tariff. The tariff difference between the discos and then what they were supposed to charge. Government was paying. They spent, first they gave 700 billion, 600 billion. They can't continue to do that. So they have to increase tariff so that those discos on their own will be able to be liquid enough to pay the power that they are buying from the GENCOs. And so it's a complex situation, but the government is making efforts. That is a fact. All governments have made effort. For instance, Obasanjo made efforts in privatizing it. When Yaradua came, though it was short, they did. Good Lord came for the 6 years he was there. He also made some concerted effort. Otherwise, it would have been worse than what we now have. You know that the government have built 10 power plants, what we call NIPP, Nigerian Integrated Power Plant. 10 of them fired by gas. And those 10, if they were not built, I think would have been operating at 1,000 megawatts by now. But at least from now we fluctuate between 3,000 to 4,000. And maybe for like 1 hour they can say they are providing 5,000. Will never last beyond 1 hour because the transmission doesn't have the capacity to weigh 5,000 megawatts of electricity. It is all about infrastructural deficit in the power sector. Those interventions from Siemens, which the government is trying to bring to address the issue of transmission and distribution, you see in the pipeline. If Siemens comes in and help Nigeria, and we are able to transmit at least 7,000 megawatts, the power problem will begin to reduce little by little. Because the generation capacity now is about 13,000 megawatts. That is what the generation power plant can generate, 13,000. We're unable to weigh that because of the infrastructural deficit. We're only wheeling about 3,000, 4,000. So until the transmission lines are fixed and the distribution is properly fixed, that is what Siemens is supposed to come and do. If we're able to weigh 10,000, we will sing hallelujah in this country because we will have light enough to go to villages where people will begin to do small cottage industry and enhance the rural economy and improve our economy. Our GDP will go up. Now, when I see GDP in this country, it's so cooked up. It's not true. People are not farming in the villages. No serious business is going on. And you say your GDP is up. It's a lie.
So you think those figures are false?
Yeah, of course they are. And they know it. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.